Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Emancipation, starring Will Smith and Ben Foster, directed by Antoine Fuqua. And if there's a way to see it, you can watch this movie on Apple TV. So I have never seen this movie before, and let's just get straight to it and see if this is like Django or 12 Years a Slave or any other slavery movie I've seen. Let's get into it. In the year 1863, in the state of Louisiana, where slavery is still legal, Peter, played by Will Smith, with an African accent that is barely there and is taken by slavers to serve them, but not his family, as well as his wife, Dodienne, as this entire movie, with an exception of a few scenes, is shot in black and white, and I'm not sure if it was the right choice by director Antoine Fuqua. While he is forced to be taken out of his house by slavers, with his family watching as he gets introduced to the master Jim Fassel, played by Ben Foster, as this character seems a bit racist, which that's the idea of the movie anyways, and the character. And I don't know about the actor, but the character intends to be either play bad guys or racists, the actor I mean. And it's very hard for me to connect with the characters as they're mediocre at best. And my problem isn't the characters, my problem is this movie is so far pretty damn depressing, as slavery times were hard times. Like, if you've seen the movie 12 Years a Slave, which is a much better movie than this, you'll know what I mean. Meanwhile, Quentin Tarantino does the subject justice in his take Django Unchained, as I would rather be watching those two movies than this, as this is not the best filmmaking. And don't get me wrong, Will Smith does a good job with the performance if it weren't for the accent, as it felt a little Philadelphian, because that's where the guy's from, originally anyways. He talks with a man named Tomas and tells him it's just work, as he believes this is not God's work, and the dialogue falls flat at times, as this movie isn't dialogue worthy, nor did the cinematography work, which it didn't, in my opinion. The slavers treat the slaves like shit by calling them the N-word, not one of my favorite words, by the way, and they call them boy a hell of a lot, as I feel more bad for the slaves than slavers. These scenes give me the hardest time to view this movie in particular. Peter digs while a couple of slavers almost pull a gun on him, and as we hear a kaboom, Peter knocks their asses out and starts to run away from the slavers as Jim sends the dogs on him in order to find him, and guides a few slaves in his direction. And Jim gets closer and closer with the dogs as they try to get to the swamps. And as they get closer to the swamps, one of the dogs catches one of the four and rips him apart. And I'm reminded of when the dogs ripped the guy apart in Django Unchained, as Peter's plan is to get to Abraham Lincoln's army. And as Jim lets him go, he shoots the slave dead, while they split up as the other two go into the swamps, and Peter runs it by a fancy house, and a little girl rings the bell alerting Jim. There's a runner passing by their house as he steals a towel to heal himself, and he continues to run and hide in the swamp where nobody can find him. And I didn't mind the hiding techniques, but what I did mind was Peter getting attacked by an alligator at one point, and he kills it again and again, as nobody can kill those damn things. As Dedienne, or Dodian, or whatever the hell her name is, believes he's coming back, as she had a dream about it and tells her kids he'll be back. And I wasn't buying that scene from that actress, Charmaine Bingwa, as I don't know who she is, and I looked her up and haven't seen her work. And this movie proves to me why I probably won't see her ever again. Jim has a monologue scene that I didn't buy by Ben Foster's performance, as I don't believe in slavery and racism towards people that don't look like me, because we're all human beings, not slavers, for Christ's sakes. Peter continues to hide from the slavers in swampy areas in the middle of the woods, while Jim and the slavers go after him, and as they won't catch him, but for about another few minutes. And that's how hard of a time this movie is giving me, I hate to say. Peter goes in a treehouse as he puts a fired knife on his wound, with Jim almost catching up to him and he finds the house, which makes me think Peter is fucked as he climbs the tree and finds a beehive. And he climbs down and finds a snake and puts him in the water. And this movie is making me nervous so far, as Peter will survive or not. Jim goes to a slave house to chat with Dodian about Peter while he canoes away from the slaves as Jim continues to look for him, and Peter bumps into another man with the same colored skin and takes him to another swamp. And I swear to God, this movie is so full of swamps to the point it is literally irritating to me. Jim catches up to the other slaves that Peter just bumped into as he dies for a few minutes. And Peter hides as they don't see him hiding in the trees, and he eventually gets out while they're not there. And this movie is full of hiding in swamps, and it's a problem because it's very irritating. Dodian with another woman crushes her hands, and come on, that's completely fucking dangerous. While Peter goes to a house where it's burning down and takes the child out of there until he's spotted by a slaver, and he wants to help the kid. And the slaver says, leave it, but Peter kills the slaver and runs away. And this is a runaway story that requires a lot of running, as that bothered me pretty badly. While Peter shoots the dog dead, and to be fair, it was an evil dog, unlike I Am Legend, which is another movie I don't necessarily like. And so far along with this movie, Peter finds Lincoln's war zone as Jim catches him going there and knocks him down as he almost kills Peter. And Jim gets shot one by one of the Lincoln soldiers as they come in and help Peter, and is approached by Captain Andre, helping him and recruiting him to the Lincoln War, which has got to be where we saw part of the events of the wonderful Steven Spielberg movie did, as he filmed part of the movie in Lincoln, which is a much better movie than this movie, in my opinion. And honestly, I was glad that Jim was gone by that point in the movie. Peter talks with some good people and gets a photograph of what the slavers did to him before he caught up to the Lincoln War, as that's going to scar me in a lot of ways. Peter joins Captain Andre on the briefing of how he got out of slavery, and makes a speech of how the slavers beat him and they'll never do it again, which I guess is a good speech if said properly by Will Smith himself with the African accent, which it was barely there. The next day comes and they go to war with the slavers, and some of the soldiers get shot as well as Captain Andre, and at one point Peter gets shot waking up after 30 seconds. And I'm thinking of a scene from The Patriot with Mel Gibson where they're in the war scene at one point and a cannonballs break someone's leg off. And I swear to God, this scene was making me think of that. And which I don't know if that was a good thing or not. I haven't seen The Patriot in a long time. But Lincoln warriors win the fights against the slavers and stopping their cannons. And Peter becomes a free man and gets home where the slavers are killed. And he reunites with his family, including his wife Dodian. And I was absolutely depressed by this climax because, again, this was such a damn depressing movie. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 4.6 out of 10. This is not 12 Years a Slave nor Django Unchained good. This movie is unfortunately so damn depressing, as Will Smith does a good job with the character as he's mediocre at best, and he barely had the African accent that I kind of heard his Philadelphian accent a little bit. This movie is not dialogue worthy as it falls flat, and I honestly don't think the choice by director Antoine Fuqua of shooting this movie mostly in black and white with a few color scenes was the best choice, as the cinematography didn't work for me, in my opinion. I had the hardest time viewing the movie, as I can't believe people back then or today believe in slavery and racism, and I can't stand it at the end of the day. This is such a damn depressing movie that doesn't deserve an Oscar for anything. So this is a mild non-recommendation for a history class movie or to anyone in this world, as I can't believe before I revisit the Equalizer films, because I reviewed them before and anticipating the new movie, as I reviewed them back in the day when the second film came out, and this is what Mr. Antoine Fuqua does before he returned into the third film, you need a break, man. I really do believe that. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and I'll be back in a couple more times. Well, just one more time for the Equalizer until we get to that weekend. And until we get to the Equalizer 3, I reviewed the previous two movies, like I just said. Until then, let's stop slavery, folks.